On a stormy night of prolonged, heavy rain, disaster suddenly struck a small village nestled at the foot of a hill. Thunder rolled across the sky, and rocks and soil began sliding down the mountainside, swept along by roaring water. Little Ben's family, who had just fallen asleep, had no idea it would be the final moment they were together. In a blink, their entire house was buried under a wave of mud and shattered bricks. No one had time to cry for help. When the rescue team reached the site the next morning, they were met with utter devastation. Where a happy family's home once stood was now a wasteland. Knee-deep mud, broken roof tiles, and twisted beams were buried in the chaos. Not a sound, not a trace of life. The rescuers froze, fearing the worst. In this bleak scene, hope seemed extinguished. No one imagined that beneath the cold rubble, a small life was still fighting to survive, and more miraculously, was being protected by the loyal heart of a dog. After hours of desperate digging, the rescue team finally heard a faint sign of life beneath the debris. It was a weak sound, tiny breaths, barely audible among the clinking of shovels and falling rain. Everyone paused, listened closely, and focused on that spot. As the last bricks were removed, a heart-wrenching sight appeared. A small dog, covered in mud, was lying over the body of a baby. The dog was barely alive, but it tried to open its eyes as light reached them. Beneath Lucky, the name they would later give him, was a baby boy, still alive, fragile but warm, protected by the tiny body that had shielded him through nearly 2 days in the freezing mud. The other 3 family members, Ben's father, mother, and grandmother, had not survived. The only remaining lives were this tiny child and his faithful 4-legged friend. In a nightmare that seemed without hope, 2 fragile lives had clung to each other and survived. There was no logic to explain it. Only love and a dog's protective instinct had created this miracle amidst tragedy. No one could have guessed that the little dog named Lucky was the reason Ben had miraculously survived. In that horrifying moment, when the house collapsed, instead of running in fear, Lucky had rushed toward the baby's crib. By instinct, he stretched out his body to cover Ben, like a living shield amidst the sea of falling bricks and mud. Lucky lay still for almost 2 days without food, water, or movement, just to keep the baby warm. Cold rains poured through the broken roof, and nighttime temperatures dropped to dangerous lows. But the loyal dog's body heat became the only source of life, helping Ben survive the deadly cold. Despite being injured, scratched, and completely drained of strength, Lucky never left the baby's side. Each breath he took was a silent prayer. That quiet sacrifice held onto the baby's life in a place where death had seemed certain. When Ben was pulled from the wreckage, the medical team immediately recognized his critical condition. His small body was freezing, his skin pale and bluish due to severe hypothermia after nearly 2 days in cold, damp conditions. He was struggling to breathe, his heartbeat faint, lips dark purple, his tiny hands limp. He showed signs of severe dehydration, having had no milk or fluids the entire time he was trapped. Doctors confirmed that if it weren't for Lucky, who lay close to keep him warm and shielded him from falling rubble, Ben would not have survived until help arrived. Ben was immediately rushed to a higher-level hospital in emergency condition. The medical team worked tirelessly to preserve each fragile breath. A life once thought to be lost, miraculously held on, thanks to the unconditional love of a small dog. That flicker of life waited to be revived. The story of Ben and Lucky quickly spread, not only within the local community, but across the hearts of millions. Amid loss and sorrow, these 2 small lives became symbols of hope, compassion, and survival. People shed tears not only for the tragedy that had struck Ben's family, but also for the unconditional love of a dog for a child. A love that asks for nothing, speaks no words, yet sacrifices everything. Lucky needed no one to teach him how to love. In the most dangerous moment, he chose to stay, shielding and warming the baby with his own body. That love did not come from reason, but from pure instinct and a loyal heart. The story left adults speechless and children quietly listening. In a world full of turmoil, this love, loyalty, and silent sacrifice became a guiding light, reminding us that kindness needs no words, and sometimes the smallest creatures teach humanity its greatest lessons.